Hello there, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, the internet, and the like, and welcome back to Team Fortress 2. Today, I'm going to be playing as the scout using not a scattergun. No. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is a weapon which I have not given a time in the spotlight for a very, very long time. This right here is the Shortstop. It is indeed not a scattergun. It fires shotgun shells, if that even counts as one positive upside, but this is a totally different weapon compared to a lot of other scout weapons that already pre-existed. And at the time of its release, the only pre-existing weapons were the regular scattergun and the Force of Nature. This is a very long-forgotten relic of a weapon, which is actually fairly decent. I remember when I actually talked about the Shortstop, which was a long time ago in one of my older videos before I even had a half-decent microphone to speak into. And the thing about this is, I just forgot about using the Shortstop entirely. I'm guilty of this. I'm sure a lot of us are guilty of that. And I'm sure a lot of people would probably agree with me that aiming with the Shortstop is a bit of a challenge and requires a lot of adjusting to. So, let's get into the stats to start things off. The assets of the Shortstop are this. It draws the same ammunition from your pistol reserve, so you probably want to equip something that, well, isn't a pistol. You gain a 40% increase in push force taken from not only explosive damage or knockback damage, but also air blast. And lastly, to give it a bit of an interesting upside to compensate for these downsides, you get 20% extra healing while you have the weapon deployed, which I don't fully understand. I know that this weapon was changed for either for better or for worse when the poly count sets were removed, but this is just a really odd upside, I find. Not only this, but the fact that you gain an increase in push force from just about any source is already weird enough. My problem with this downside is that when you go to encounter any class which has explosive weapons, which additionally have the capabilities of pushing you backwards, most of the time you die before you even have a chance to simulate what the experience is like to be a flying jet. I suppose it makes more sense if you were being air blasted away by a pyro, either into a corner to be punched by a flare, for instance, or if you were being air blasted off of a cliff. At that point, there would just be no hope of you escaping. You just have to accept your fate. And I suppose that's probably where this weapon has its largest downside, but even then, not all maps have bottomless pits or cliffs, and chances are this probably won't happen very often. I suppose if you have yet to encounter a really good pyro who knows how to trap you with an air blast, until then, I don't really see this downside as being very mentionable. In fact, the upside I don't really find being that mentionable either. You get extra health while you have the weapon deployed, but I think a better upside for this would be to gain 25 extra health on your character. You know how the old poly count set used to work? The Milkman set allowed you to gain 25 extra health, making your max health cap 150, the exact same as a medic's. Now, when this was removed, they decided to add these attributes to the weapon, these attributes which I've already mentioned. The pre-existing one was already the fact that you drawed ammo from the pistol reserve. And before then, this was the only downside. This Shortstop is unique in the fact that it is such a different weapon, which doesn't really need any of these odd upsides or downsides to compensate for it. It's just a really strange weapon. Not to say that it's bad, and not to say it's one that I wouldn't consider using anytime in the future. In fact, I'm a little more motivated to use this weapon now that I'm actually talking about it. But I just don't really understand how this weapon came to be when the poly count sets were removed. What else can I really say? This is just a very weird weapon, and I can't really think of any other descriptive word to suit it. Another thing that is worth mentioning about the Shortstop is that it is a very awkward weapon to actually aim. The thing about playing Scout is that over time you learn not to aim with your mouse, but rather it's a combination of both slight mouse movement and strafing. You need to do a lot of constant strafing. What throws me off the most about the Shortstop is the fact that it's pretty much like a quad-barrel pistol. That's exactly what it is to me. And you know how I am with playing Scout and using a pistol. I absolutely despise that. I prefer playing with a pistol whenever I use Engineer, because For Engineer, it makes a bit more sense. You have a moderately fast running speed, and granted, while Engie isn't exactly the best fighting class on his own, you know, it makes a bit more sense, and I find the damage output in that situation tends to be a lot more in my favor because I'm not moving at a ridiculously fast speed. My problem with playing Scout is that you move so fast, and you really have to change your aiming movement to actually shoot the gun properly. And with the pistol bullets already being inaccurate enough as is, you pretty much have to stop and stand still, right dead in your tracks, to actually land a couple of decent shots. And I hate standing still. I absolutely despise standing still as a scout. I have to keep running, otherwise I'm going to die a very, very terrible death. Trust me, I have enough experience with that. And my biggest issue with the Shortstop is that it really teaches you to modify your aim so that way it's not like aiming a scattergun, it's like aiming a slightly larger pistol. That's what really throws me off the most about this weapon, and I kinda had to turn off view models whenever I actually recorded demos for this. So, what you're seeing right now is basically all new to me. I had no idea what the Scout was doing with this weapon. All I knew was that in my head, when I had the view models turned off, I was shooting the gun and maybe occasionally reloading it, and otherwise, whatever Scout was doing was obviously not visible on my screen. And you know what? That's probably fine enough whenever I play Scout, in general. I feel as though I've been maintaining this rather negative tone during a majority of this video, so let me get a little bit more positive about this weapon. I love the Shortstop because of its damage. Some of you might be thinking, well, it does less damage, it's probably not the most suitable option if you need to get up close and personal with enemies. That's pretty much what the Scout is intended to do. But the best thing about the Shortstop is that it allows you to hang back at around medium range, and you have a very, very good damage output in that regard, because the Shortstop does have a tighter spread, a very tighter spread compared to pretty much any other weapon in his arsenal. And that makes it really, really good for taking out sentry guns, trust me. Taking out mini sentries has never been easier than with the Shortstop. I find that because of this tighter spread, it allows you to stay at comfortably either at a long range or even a medium range, and you can output enough damage to take one out in no time. And even large sentry guns, those that are just outside of your reach which would normally be taken out more suitably with a pistol, but the Shortstop does its best because of that tighter spread. I just find this weapon really, really good for countering engineers. The unfortunate truth of the matter is, the Shortstop has been so estranged by the community for an exceptionally lengthy amount of time that it has pretty much maintained its status as a long-lost forgotten relic since I ever last talked about it, and it's very disappointing to say that because I find that this is definitely one of the more unique weapons of the game. Very similar to how the Sniper has the Huntsman compared to all other sniper rifles, the Scout has the Shortstop, which even though it does fire shotgun shells, it definitely doesn't feel like a shotgun. It's definitely doing its own little thing, and I can deeply respect that. But the problem is, I doubt that the community will give much love to the Shortstop, and even if they do change it once again, it will probably receive attention for a bare minimum of 1 week before the community just forgets about it altogether. And that's pretty much the life cycle of a lot of unlockable weapons nowadays. Some stick with us, and others just kind of get thrown in the trash. All I can really say at this point is that the Shortstop does have my personal seal of approval, and I would recommend that you give it a shot at some point. So, do try the Shortstop out! And thank you guys very much for watching. Have a great day or evening, and I guess I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.